Hello knitters, Barbara Benson here. I am an independent knitwear designer who also likes to make videos here on my YouTube channel, Watch Barbara Knit. Make sure to check in the description notes below the video where you will find links to anything I talk about during this video, including how to get my patterns to knit up for yourself, how to join the Watch Barbara Knit Facebook group, and how to support me on Patreon. And of course today there will be links to Eat, Sleep, Knit and Sweet Georgia, because today we are doing the Swatch Lab from the August Eat, Sleep, Knit unboxing. Eat, Sleep, Knit so graciously sent me a fantastic box of yarn to open up. I will link to that video so you can go back and watch the unboxing if you're interested. It's a whole bunch of fun and a lot of fun yarn. And at the end of that unboxing, announced that I would actually be doing two things. One, putting up a poll so y'all could vote on which of the yarns I received you wanted to see a swatch on, and two, give away the box. So I have already, the entry time for the giveaway has expired and I contacted the winner. So congratulations to Denise in Minnesota. I hung on to the box because I wanted to wait until I was done with the Swatch Lab, but you can be sure that this will be going into the mail to you this weekend once the video is live, and I'm 100% sure I don't need anything else in this box. So we did the poll, and your options were either the Moondrake, this gorgeous, gorgeous mohair silk blend, the Dream and Color Jilly, which is a single, and it is lovely. This is called Ring the Blossom Bell, or the Malabrigo Sussurro, which is a mulberry silk, wool, and linen blend. I'm showing you these and you can see they're still in their skeins. They are not the ones that y'all chose, even though they're all gorgeous. And honestly, I have some Sussurro in my own personal stash, and enough of you, Sussurro came in number 2. Enough of you expressed interest in the Sussurro that I am planning on doing a swatch lab on it. It'll just be my own personal skein because that skein is going to Denise. But y'all chose Flaxen Silk DK from Sweet Georgia. It just edged out the Sussurro. So that is, you know what? I'm going to do what y'all want. I'm pretty excited. The other thing is a lot of y'all expressed interest in, well, not anywhere near as many, but a lot of people expressed interest in the mohair and wanting to see how it worked up. So I will get a hold of some silk mohair blend to swatch up so we can talk about it and really talk about why I didn't think it'd be a particularly good choice, because a lot of what I do in Swatch Lab, just, it's going to be like, no, that's not going to work because mohair is its own beast. So that is on the list as well. Sweet Georgia, Flaxen Silk DK. I will give you all the details. I have already filmed the actual overview of the swatch. It will be filmed so you can just see my hands and the swatch and me doing a voiceover so that you can really see the detail. This is the swatch I made. It is, as you can see, not a small swatch because you can't learn anything from a small swatch. This is a big swatch. What I do in Swatch Labs is I put the yarn through its paces. I do some lace, I do some stockinette, I do some texture, I do some cables, and I also did some mesh to see how the yarn and what it liked and didn't like. And that's how I want you to think about it, is what does this yarn like and not like? It's not this is a good yarn or this is a bad yarn. It's just different yarns perform well at different things. And the best idea is to match yarns with patterns that contain elements that yarn excels at. You don't want to try to force a yarn to do something that it really doesn't want to do. I wanted to take a brief moment and talk about how the actual feel of the knitting was. And one thing I wanted to mention about that is linen can be hard on the hands. When you're working with 100% linen, it has no give, it has no stretch, and it is a little rough right out of the skein. So some people avoid knitting with linen because it is a little hard on the hands. This is 65% silk. Silk is much softer than linen, so it actually was very lovely to knit with. It slid through my hands nicely, it slid over my needles nicely. It is a multiply, as you will see, but I didn't have any problems with splitting, even though I was using a pointy needle. So it's got a nice twist to it. It's not going to, should not really cause a lot of splitting problems for you. So it was very nice to work with. I wet blocked it, so soaked it for 20 minutes before getting the water out, and then I blocked it fairly aggressively. You don't have to block it as aggressively as I did, but I wanted to see how well it held the thing where I blocked it to, and it held it beautifully. So as I expected, neither linen or silk have much memory as far as wanting to draw back to its original shape. So it drapes beautifully. It is a nice lightweight. It's going to breathe amazingly because both silk and linen are very breathable fibers. It's not going to keep you particularly warm. So if warm is what you're going through for in whatever you're knitting, it is not going to be your best choice. But for summer weight or transitional garments, it's definitely going to be something that you can wear even in warm weather situations. So that is fantastic. And let's get to the actual mad scientist portion of the program. Sweet Georgia, Flaxen, Silk, DK in the color basil or basil. As you can see, we have information here. She says to alternate skeins for optimal color blending, hand wash gently, lay flat to dry. SweetGeorgiaYarns.com. She's there on Instagram, and you have a dye lot. And we look over here, Flaxen Silk DK is 65% silk and 35% linen, 248 yards or 226 meters per 4 ounces in a 115 gram skein. So that is the information that we have from the ball band. You note she did not provide any suggested gauge or anything, which frankly I think is kind of smart, because if you've watched some of my other videos, you can really knit any yarn at any gauge depending on what results you wanted. I actually went on to Ravelry and searched the patterns that people have already knit and looked at the different needle sizes people had used, and people had used a wide range. I ended up choosing to use a 6. You probably can't read this. Just trust me, this is a 6. I used this Gu metal needle. 6 is a fairly safe size for DK, and it worked well for me. If I was going to knit a shawl, I would probably go up to a 7 or an 8. If I was going to try to knit something more densely, you can go down, but the 6 is probably pretty good for a just generally nice drapey gauge, but you can definitely go tighter. There were a lot of things on Ravelry that were knit on 4s. So if you want a denser gauge on your garment, that is a possibility. Let's look at the cake. This is the cake you can see here, and let's take a look at the yarn itself. It is a multi-plied yarn. It is nice and round, which is to be expected when you have so many plies. We're actually going to go to the end here and tease it out. What I'm going to do to tease it out is roll it against the twist. So I'm taking my left hand and rolling it away and pulling this towards me, and I'm going to pull it apart like it is an embroidery floss. So we can see the individual skeins. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like we have 6 tiny plies, which is super cool. You can see all of them fanning out there. I've now officially made a mess of this yarn. Don't do this in a yarn store. Only do it to yarn that you already own. So that tells you it has 6 small plies. Another thing I'd like to do is get an idea of how much bloom, how much extra air is spun into this, because that's going to give you an idea of if the yarn is actually going to expand under wet blocking. And the way I figure that out is I hold it regular and then I pull it. And if it's a yarn with a lot of extra air spun in, if it's a very lofty yarn, when you pull it, it'll get really skinny. As you can see here, let's move everything out of the way so there's nothing in the background. As you can see, when I pull it, it doesn't really, I mean, it compacts a little bit, but it's not really thinning out. So I wouldn't expect this yarn to bloom very much, which again is very much in line with what I would expect from a silk and linen blend, especially it being predominantly silk. Well, really neither of these types of fibers tend to bloom very much. They are both strong fibers, they are both very drapey fibers, and they don't have a lot of memory. So that is the ball. And now it's swatch lab time. Let's look at the swatch. So here it is. It's not all going to fit in frame because I knit gigantic swatches. I planned it out, and for future swatch labs, I think I'm going to pretty much use this same swatch just so we're testing everything on equal footing. You can see that I added more because I can't leave well enough alone. So I've revised my chart that I have so that I can try to do about the same thing. So the first thing we did here is some lace. And I did this lace that's got this chevron in it so I could see when I blocked it what kind of point it held. When you have something that's going to have a picot or a point or a scallop, is this going to stay where you blocked it, or is the memory of the yarn going to cause it to pull back in? And this held the point beautifully. Again, exactly what I expected from a silk linen blend. It has a nice round shape, which gives us excellent stitch definition. And by stitch definition, I mean that every single stitch is very visible and you can see each individual stitch. With yarns that have more loft or that are like wool, something that's fuzzier, the stitch can be obscured and it can have low stitch definition. And I'm not saying that one is desirable and one isn't desirable, they just do different things well. But you can definitely see in this slip one, knit two together, pass, slip, stitch over, that passed over stitch is very visible and you can see it here. After blocking, it held the lace very nicely. You've got this good lace. Now, because this was on a 6, this isn't super open lace. As I said, if I was going to do a lace shawl with this yarn, I would probably go up a couple of needle sizes so that the in-betweens were more open. So these yarn overs would be bigger and it would open this lace up more, because the yarn itself definitely loves lace. The silk and the linen both hold the lace very, very nicely, and it will be great in lace shawls. Then I have a small section of stockinette. Again, this is where we're really seeing the stitch definition and seeing what this would like. Since you can see each individual stitch, that says to me that this is not going to be your best choice for like intricate color work. Simple color work, it'll be fine, but if you get into intricate color work relies on less stitch definition so that the stitches kind of blur together to create your illusion of like a picture or an image or intricate detailing in your color work. Since each of these stitches pops out beautifully because it has great stitch definition, might not be your best choice for intricate color work. It'll work great in stripes and simple color work. And it just makes a beautiful stockinette fabric. The shine of it and the slight variation in the color, that's the dye working there, makes this even the stockinette interesting. Each stitch is just a slightly different color, which keeps it from looking like just a flat block of stockinette. Next, we tried a texture to see what a texture is going to look like. This is a simple moss stitch. It's knit 2, purl 2, and then alternating out. You can see what it did in the texture. Again, it's very crisp stitch definition, makes it so the texture pattern is not as visible as it might be in other yarns, but it still adds a very interesting texture and changes the surface of the fabric as opposed to the stockinette. So it would be nice with some nice textures. Next we have, what is it gonna do in cables? What I've done here is these framing cables are 1/1 cables, and as you can see, they're pretty flat. They're not punching up exceptionally well. So small cables, they're there and you can see them, but more what you're seeing is just that stitch passed over. As you can see, it's sort of very straight on the sides. It doesn't have that kind of roundedness that you sometimes get in cables. And that's just the nature of this fiber. Now, these are 2/2 cables. And since it's a bulkier cable, well, more stitches on the cable, you can see it's forming that snake-like shape that we like so much in cables. And because it's 2/2, it is popping up more. So I'm gonna, like at the side, you can see we are getting some 3D relief there. So yes, it definitely works in cables. The bigger, the better. Now, if I was doing cables, you can see this reverse stockinette that I did between here is kind of open. If I was going to do a cable pattern with this, I might go down a couple needle sizes to get this a little more dense so that things would pop better. Then finally, and here, let me show you here. I just wanted to see, I always do this to see what happens. These are cable crosses, cable cross, purl row, 2 knit rows. So it's a cable cross separated by 2 rows of stockinette. So it's a cable cross every 4th row. Here I do a cable cross every right side row just to see how it handles that. And it's really not doing a whole lot for me, but that's what it'd look like if it's something you want to do. But again, it's beautiful. And then finally, I did some mesh lace. This was knit 2 together, yarn over on both sides. So I was working lace with knit 2 togethers and yarn overs on both sides. This is true knitted lace, just to see how it stood up to that. And as you can see, because of the fibers, it's holding it beautifully. Now, with a lot of weight, because like I said, it doesn't have a lot of memory, there might be a tendency for it to pull down a bit, but it is just gorgeous yarn. Here's what the back looks like. This obviously is reversible, looks the same on the back and the front. We've got our purl ditches from the cables. That's what reverse stockinette looks like, because it's the reverse of stockinette. And this is what the back of the chevron and lace at the bottom looks like. The mesh I did is 100% reversible, pretty much looks the same regardless of which side it is. So that is the Flaxen Silk DK from Sweet Georgia. That's the Mad Scientist Swatch Lab, to give you a better idea of what kind of performance you're going to get out of this beautiful yarn. I hope that you found that interesting. Yeah, hopefully I gave you a little bit of information that you didn't already know about this absolutely lovely, lovely yarn. It comes in very beautiful colors. You should definitely check that out. Either on the Eat Sleep Knit site, has a wide selection, or you can look at Sweet Georgia. The Eat Sleep Knit, though, they did send me this box, and they're the reason why I was able to play with this and share it with you. Now I have to pack this up and send it off to Denise. She did say that she wanted the partial skein, and I'm going to go ahead and send her this so that if she is truly desperate, she can frog this if she needs the yarn. And I will say that, you know, this gauge swatch, this is my gauge. Even though I can send this to Denise and tell her I knitted on a 6, that doesn't mean that she's going to get the same gauge with the same needle. It also depends on her actual knitting tension. So that is the Swatch Lab for the Eat Sleep Knit unboxing. I am looking forward to getting my next Eat Sleep Knit shipment, and we will definitely be doing this whole thing again. I will be giving away that box, and I will be knitting something from that box. And again, I mentioned y'all showed a lot of interest in the Susuro. I have Susuro. I will work on a Swatch Lab for that, and I will work on something more, maybe just a video, not necessarily a Swatch Lab, but a video talking about lace weight silk mohair blends and how they perform in patterns, because they have a few quirks. So thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please give it the thumbs up, click that like button. And if you would like to be notified whenever I upload a new video, please subscribe to my channel and select notifications. Thank you so much.